Hello folks, my name is Robert Draper. I am the content creator of Times Masquerade. This channel concerns itself with some pretty trippy stuff. And that is the fact that there is a second form of time other than what we all know about, called Chronos time or chronological time. Chronological time is read in a circular, linear, sequential fashion, and it goes around the clock face. But this other form of time makes connections within the numbers on your clock face to create this symbol. You see in back of me, it's interior. It's going across light years. That alone is just astounding. But again, this was known by, this is how civilizations are actually founded. So right now, we're in the age, well, the last few short years of AI, artificial intelligence. It's not artificial wisdom. I don't think there is such a thing yet. But anyway, artificial intelligence is speeding things up. So we become, our attention spans as a whole is shortened in the last few short years. We have magazines named after, like Time Magazine and the Times, and apps like Instagram, Instantly, TikTok. Everything's got to be done within milliseconds or else you're out. Well, but I would like to hope to open up some minds to the fact that there is a way to tell time this other way. The Greeks called this other way Kairos time, K-A-I-R-O-S, and a two-word definition for its etymology is archery and weaving. So chronological time is woven into this other form of time. So here, this is the symbol put on top of the of what we know of. So if you can count to three, it's just composed of three parts: 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. The vertical is the spirit world, and here we go. So it's this simple. Yes, initially it's this simple. This is the spirit world. The ground we walk on is the red, is the, well, that's the physical. And the blue, if you're a human being, you're going to be interested in this. This is our part. This is where chronological time is woven into this symbol. So what I'm saying is that we are composed body, soul, and spirit. We're living in an age right now where we don't really recognize the soul and the spirit as being part of our, quote, sciences. Physics, quantum physics, is just having to do with the purely, literally physical. And they haven't really made any major discoveries beyond quantum physics in a number of years, and they've had a heck of a time with this thing, slit experiment, where they can't capture light at a certain instance, and it keeps on moving from wave to particle. And anyway, I'm not a scientist, but I am really interested in some of the best scientists around. There is a fellow by the name of Dr. Wolfgang Smith. He was 93 years old. He died very recently, but he was one of the world's premier physicists, and he was explaining that the reason why science really hasn't made any big leaps in the last few years, and he was one of the leading proponents, and he had incredible history in quantum physics because, and he was a prolific reader of classics. He believed, just like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, that the world is tripartite. The reality itself is tripartite. When you don't admit that, then you get stuck in the physical. And that, I believe, is actually what's going on. So anyway, keep it simple, Robert. All right. So the way to tell time this other way is becoming familiar with the code. AI has a code. It's mostly zeros and ones, and an incredible speed having to do with that, and the iterations does its boogie that way. But Kairos time, this symbol in back of me, which actually stands for the universe, the coding, believe it or not, is actually on ancient coins from around the world. Initially, for me, it started out with the Greek and the Roman coins, but I found that symbol, it's woven, it's throughout the earth. And it is, a single coin has two sides. Now, that may sound like a ridiculous statement, but the way I started to get into this thing was discovering the jetons of Louis XIV. I was looking at eBay about 2003, 2004, and looking at the jetons of Louis XIV. Well, what are jetons? Jetons were actually the money among the central banking houses of Europe at that time. And there was a guy in Louis's government called Jean-Baptiste Colbert, and he was a member of a number of different secret societies. And on the jetons, and they were just stuff you put down on a checkerboard when they were settling accounts, and you'd move them around and push them or bring them. By the way, that's where we get the word jet from, to push. So the symbol on the jetons of Louis XIV that were minted by this Jean-Baptiste Colbert was extremely simple, and I saw a code. I saw a code. It was just two parallel lines with a dot in the center and some mechanism that connected them. And that was on a number of different jetons. And so I did a few weeks, maybe a couple months, whatever it was, I forget now, research on what that may stand for. And it turns out it's very significant. It actually stands for the constellation Gemini. And, constellation Gemini. In the Roman belief, there was a belief that one of those pillars stood for immortal and one stood for an immortal. And actually, it was the founding of Rome, called Romulus and Remus, but it was the same boogie throughout the world. So you've got these two pillars, mortal and immortal, and the dot in the center stood for for a star called Sirius. It is the brightest visible star, not the brightest star in heaven, but to the naked eye, it's the brightest. To your naked eye, it's the brightest star. So just that one coin. By the way, that star coming forth, being birthed between the relationship between the mortal and the immortal, that star coming forth is Athens. It's called Athena, Pallas Athena. And so that whole constellation, the boogie on that is, the story on that is shortcut birth. And that start to anchor the entire system to the earth. Birth. On one side of the coin, on the other side of the coin, there was a bull. It stands for Taurus. Taurus happens to be right next to Gemini. The bull was known as a sacrificial animal throughout the world. So on one coin, you had birth and death. Birth and death. That started this whole discovery out, the entire constellations, and what I just showed you about the vertical spirit and the horizontal. They all are anchored by the code on the ancient coins. And that is quite a rabbit hole. All right. It's quite a rabbit hole, but it works, and it started to work. So there is a yin-yang, a push and a pull. There is a incredibly precise symmetry, believe it or not, on the ancient coins. And the study of ancient coins is called numismatics. It's where a bunch of nerds get in these little tiny rooms, all these little tiny coins, and they're hunched over the card tables and buying and selling them. But the important thing is they have a numismatic value, but the actual value, I believe, is what I'm saying right now. The coding on the coins unravels the proper orientation of the constellations. The whole thing turns out to be prophetic. Yes, all the constellations, there's 12 constellations, and there's 3 that surrounds each constellation. There's 48 star groupings, and they all have to do with Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Son of God. So, we're in interesting times. Like Alice said, curiouser and curiouser. Things are speeding up. And I can't cram everything into one video, but the payoff for learning the how to tell time this way, how the constellations are oriented into this, and this, and it creates, it creates that. That is a symbol for the universe. Well, there it is. I hope I've aroused some little bit of interest in this thing. And as I go on, I'm trying to get my boogie down so I can iterate, make clear some initial founding structural points. Just kind of like a surveyor going out with his instruments and trying to get a clean read on purchasing some land or something. Orientation is very important, but it is not complex. Again, I think a child ranging from maybe 10 years old to 12, 13 could easily get this stuff down, and at least there's some really beautiful things about our immediate future. So I painted myself into a corner, so I'll just back off. Thanks for listening.